It's so lovely to see you, Dionne. You're in England or in Italy? Whereabouts are you?
I am very definitely in slightly chilly England. This is English summertime, everybody. It's cold. I've got cashmere cardigan on. What can I say? It's not the summer that I would like.
So Dionne has a beautiful life, don't you, where you go between England and Italy and do some wonderful things in Italy. Thank you so very much for being part of Aint the Archies, and I really appreciate the fact that you could find time, because life's been full on for you, I'm aware, that you could do this self-portrait of you, which is different from the work you normally do. Would you like to tell us a bit about your portrait?
Well, firstly, thank you for inviting me. Thank you for giving me the challenge. I always love a challenge, and it was a big challenge, actually. When we met in face to face last time, for my exhibition with you, Momentum was, in the main part, 50 pieces of my work that's for 50 years of me. And towards the end of that collection of work, more and more, not necessarily portraits, but people and figures started creeping into the work. And didn't quite know why. And reflecting on it, it's to do with experiences, but experiences with people, not necessarily experiences with places. And I wanted to build on that. While I was also with you, the Archies, the Archibald Prize was showing at in Brisbane, I think it was, and I went to visit when I travelled through en route to you. And so I got a feel for what the prize was about. And then when it actually came to make the piece of work, my life was slightly upside down. So the work needed to reflect that, I guess. It needed to reflect a bit of a change. And I struggled with the idea of doing a portrait of somebody else. And I'll tell you why in a minute. So I needed a smiley pic of me, a smiley selfie. I really wanted to show my drawing off, because that's the basis of all my work, is observation and drawing. I'd just come off the back of a very, very intense, fast-paced but emotionally charged piece of work, and I needed to kind of change my pace, change my levels. And so this piece is it's called Fragility, which is how I was feeling, and it's hand stitched with big looping long hand stitches, so that it's less about the stitch and more about the thread, the thickness of thread, the direction of the line, and the way that they kind of, those lines cross and build a level of intensity. And they are an illustration of the way that I draw. I looked out the original drawing. Let me hold it up. Oh, can you see that?
Yes.
So that's the original, and I used that kind of as the basis for my inspiration, to put the stitches in certain directions and certain lengths, use certain weights of thread. So where there's more emphasis, I've used a thicker 50 weight thread. Where it needed a more delicate hand, then I've used maybe 100 weight thread, which is incredibly fine. And I've worked it on top of wool, which is generally my fabric of choice. A very thick, well, it almost looks like a boiled wool. I don't think it is boiled. but it's woven underneath rather than being felted. And it's got a certain feel to it that I enjoy, and it's always important to me that there's the things I wear, the things I work with have the right touch about them. They need to they've got to bring you happiness, haven't they? The fragility was my mood at the time, and hand stitch because I needed a different pace to me and the way that I was feeling and the way that I was thinking. It had to be drawing based because that is everything to me. And I do actually hand stitch quite a bit, particularly when I don't have access to a studio space or a sewing machine, because normally my work is very speedy, heavy, free machine embroidery. And when I can't do that, when I'm traveling, I take a little kit of hand stitch stuff around and hand stitch to get my textile fix.
The show that you did with me, Momentum, which were the smallish pieces, as you say, there was 50 of them. They were quick, weren't they? They were very quick, bright, active, intense, some of them, in terms of colours and density of the stitching. Whereas this is very reflective of what you've been talking about, which is the fragility with such fine lines that you've stitched. So it's such a different style for you.
You see, I don't see it as so different, if I'm honest. It because it comes from that observational place. In my mind's eye, they're still very connected and drawn. Momentum really illustrated a whole series of scenes and emotions and reactions to trips that I had taken earlier in that particular year. And as small pieces, they were intensely stitched. So they seem quite quick, but with the intensity of stitch, took quite a long time to do. But there's a sense of energy in them because I'm working with an energetic media, and also in free machine embroidery, very fast sewing machine. And that body of work was quite different for me in that suddenly there was an injection of colour that hadn't been in my work prior to that point. And I loved it, completely loved it. And colour will come back.
And have you continued to do portraits?
I haven't, but portraits figured in earlier work, much earlier work. So when I was a student, I was reflecting on this earlier on today. When I was a student at Goldsmiths, Goldsmiths is in London, I would sit on the tube and draw other passengers on the tube. And we went traveling one holiday and did the same again in, I think it was Barcelona. And one of the reasons that I chose to do me as a self-portrait rather than to do a portrait of another artist, which I know was one of the things that you suggested, was because in Barcelona, I started drawing in a bar. And it turned out one of the women that I started drawing was also an artist, and she was maybe a street artist or something. So she started drawing me, I drew her. And my work is honest. It's always been, I draw what I see. I don't make a pretty version of it. I just draw it as I see it, and I can't do it any other way. Anyway, she made a very pretty version of me. She kind of flowered up the edges and got rid of some laughter lines and things like that, put a twinkle in the eye. And I did what I saw. She was an older lady, and I added in those lines of character, and I added in those lines of experience.
I'm so delighted to have you part of this show. I was really pleased that you were able to find a time, because I know how busy life has been, for you to create your portrait. So thank you so very much, and it's so nice to see you again.
Well, it's been a pleasure, Anne. Thank you for putting it together. Thank you for inviting me, and love the challenge, and love the distraction, and the ability to refocus as well. It's been really good. Thank you.